One other thing about your commuter marriage, I guess, is what it is. You make a really nice point in your book about how the campaign, as rigorous and arduous as it was, really brought you two together, gave you lots of time together. Now, do you still have that? Have you had to sacrifice that?
Well,
I mean, where does the romance go when you're in?
Sherrod leaves me, Sherrod will never waste anything, so he leaves me love notes, but it's on recycled paper from his Secretary of State days in Ohio. But we really work at this. We email back and forth all day long. We both have Blackberries. We call each other all day, and we make lists every day so that by the end of the day we have a list of things to tell each other about when we're not together. Yeah. And what we also remind ourselves is it's nice to miss each other. And we really make the most of our time together because we don't know how much time we have together. You know, when you marry in middle age, I mean, I was 46 when I married Sherrod. He was 51. And we had both been longtime single parents. We know how fortunate we are. We know how blessed our lives are. And we know how marriages can go wrong because we each had been married once before and divorced. So I thank God for modern technology, of course, because it's made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But we also really
do you have little cameras on your laptop so that you can?
Sherrod's not real technology. He didn't even know what a CD looked like when I met him, let alone have one. And he had an 8-track player in his kitchen. Lord.
I have to ask then, are you going to see him this trip?
Yeah, I was here yesterday. I saw him this morning. And, you know, last night we walked home, and it still takes our breath away to see the Capitol Dome lighted up at night.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the promise of what this is supposed to be here.
Right.
It doesn't always go well, but it really reminds us of where the standard's supposed to be. And we thought about that last night. We're very corny. Our kids, they do the gag thing all the time.
You're from Ohio.
We're from Ohio. That's right.
Which building is his office in?
Russell.
Russell. Yeah. Well, that's one of the sweet old ones.
I love. Well, we wanted the old one. You know, a lot of them like Hart because it's a lot more modern.
Well, more modern. No, Russell's really got some good looks. Whose office did he get? Does he know the provenance of his? You
know, I don't know.
I just wondered if they scratched their names inside.
No, they changed
closet.
No, but you know what he's got? Did you know this on the Senate floor? These desks. Did you know that the senators engraved their names?
Well, that's better than leaving gum.
Yes, it is. And he's got Bobby Kennedy and McGovern's old desk.
Oh, well,
and McGovern was on the floor 2 weeks ago because once you've been in the Senate, you can always have floor privileges. And it happened to be the 100th day, time that Sherrod had presided over the Senate, and he got the Golden Gavel Award. And he went over to McGovern and brought him over to his desk and said, "I've got your desk." And he opened it up and showed it to him. So it was very cool.
Where are your children?
Where?
Where are they?
We have 2 in New York. Okay. One's married, living in Brooklyn. She's a union organizer, but of course we had to have one, right?
Yeah.
We have another one who's right now is interning at New York Magazine. She just graduated from Columbia.
That's cool.
My daughter's the youngest. She's going to John Carroll University, Kate. And my son is getting his doctorate in math at OSU and just got married.
And how often are you all able to be together?
More than you think. We really make the effort.
Because again, the campaign provided that too, didn't it?
Well, I did. Yeah. I paid for all those flights because we didn't think the campaign should pay for it. Oh yeah, and 2 of them came in full time at one point and volunteered full time, took leaves of absence from their own jobs to work. We make a real effort to get the family together because to me, you know, I'm not a long-term politico, and I see in a lot of these political families that you really have to work at that part of your life because politics can become everything
owns you,
and you can't let that happen. And as Sherrod sometimes
you realize how radical that is to say in this town where it owns almost everybody.
But I'm seeing the proof of what happens in this town also, and there are a lot of very shallow relationships that you develop in politics, and so you got to deepen the well somewhere. You know, I mean, you can't always be in the waiting pool. You got to dive in sometimes. You got to have these. And for me, the long-term friendships with friends who had nothing to do with politics was so crucial for me last year, especially my women friends.
You watch it, or you might end up a counselor here counseling political marriages. But let's go back. You're a single parent. You're writing a column. I think you'd already won the Pulitzer.
No, I won the Pulitzer after I married Sherrod. He loves to tell people that, but he had nothing to do with it.
But you're writing this column, and he sends you an email?
He did. He had not been reading. I had been a feature writer, and I just finished a series.
Isn't that kind of creepy? A stranger sends you? No, I'm kidding.
Are you kidding? You know how many strangers send me emails? What I loved about it is well, first of all, he totally sucked up and compared me to Barbara Kingsolver. Can we all acknowledge that was a suck-up line? He denies it. Yeah. But he signed it, Sherrod Brown, Lorain, Ohio. And I looked and I thought, well, I know who you are. I had never met him. He hates when I say this, but it's true. I have never met him, and never interviewed. If I had, I wouldn't have gone out with him.
Why?
Because I never, ever dated anybody I covered. period.
Period.
Yeah, and I had never dated anybody in politics. So when Sherry and I first started dating, well, it was really fast. We had our first date on New Year's Day, because even congressmen don't have scheduled events on New Year's Day evening, and we were engaged by Thanksgiving. And that was after, see, I had been a single mom for 11 years, and Sherry had been on his own for 16 with 2 daughters.
So you had to blend a family.
Yeah, but you know what? They were so happy we found each other. They get together on their own a lot.
What did your daughter say when you realized that I guess she'd turned the corner about
Well, yeah, because Caitlin, she's the youngest. She was 16. You know, this is a lot to take on. It had been Mom and Kate, 2 cats and a dog for a very long time. And then this guy comes in and she says, you have to admit, Mom, he fills a room. He's very outgoing. And we were waiting one night, Caitlin and I, for C-SPAN, for Cher to come on before we were watching C-SPAN, because that's what happens to you when you start getting accounts. All of a sudden you're watching C-SPAN all the time. And I was needle pointing, I remember. And my daughter was doing some homework, and she says, very nonchalantly, she says, you know, Mom, I really do care about Sherrod. And I thought, okay, I know thin ice when I'm skating on. And I said, I'm glad, honey. And I just kept stitching. And she said, yeah, if he died, I'd cry. I told Sherrod later that night, you're in. But it's such a teenage way of saying it, isn't it?
But the decision to run for Senate, you know, you mentioned that he was thinking of running for governor, and he was sort of waffling about that, I guess.
Well, he didn't want to. He really didn't want to run for governor.
And so he was getting a reputation as somebody who would sort of run up to the starting line and then back away.
Even if he wasn't saying he wanted to run, if others were urging him to,
right.
He wasn't.
But the Senate thing seemed to really interest him,
yes.
and it was a hard time coming to that decision
for me,
for you, and he was factoring you into
he
his
wouldn't
decision.
do it without me.
And you were watching The West Wing?
Well, all right, it led up to that. Sherry never liked to watch The West Wing because he said they talk too fast. I love The West Wing. And I remembered the first 2 episodes of season 2. It's when the shooting occurs and they do all this flashback about why he first decided to run for office. So we had several things happen. I mean, I didn't want him to run because I was worried about what it would do to our marriage. I was worried about what it would do to my career. You know, the typical career move after winning the Pulitzer is not to leave your job a few months later and go work for hubby. So I was nervous about that.
Stake your ground.
Right. And I was also really worried about the Karl Rove machine. I mean, we knew he'd be directly involved in the race if Sherrod got in it, and he was. But I kept listening and watching my husband as he was talking other people into running for various offices. And I would listen to him talk about how this is the time to change the direction of our country. Our country's in a lot of trouble, and he really was willing to give up a safe House seat, but he said, I will not do this unless you're with me. And he said, it's not enough for you to say, well, if you have to do this, go ahead. He said, you've got to be with me. So I was getting there. And then I thought, we need to watch these 2 episodes, and we did. And I can't explain, it's just that afterwards we looked at each other and we both kind of teared up, and I said, you really need to run, don't you? And he said, I think I really do, don't I? And that was it. And we thought, well, smooth sailing from there on. And boy, did it hit the fan, because he got in later and he wouldn't tell anybody it was my fault. I kept saying, tell them I'm the reason, and he wouldn't do it. So I put it in the book that I was the reason he didn't get in sooner.
And there was competition in the Democratic primary, a fellow named Paul Hackett, but then he did eventually drop out.
Right.
And you were off, but it's just to imagine, well, there's 2 things to talk about here. I don't remember which happened first, you sleeping in your car or taking a leave of absence.
Just falling asleep in the car.
But there you are now, trying to really, and as many women do, you're trying to do it all.
Yeah.
You're trying to do your job, be a parent, and be a campaign wife. And you were falling asleep in supermarket parking lots?
Yeah, I would drive home. I'll never forget my friend Gailey calling. She's a doctor. And what I would do sometimes, I knew I had to pick up some groceries on the way home from work. So I pull in, and I thought, if I could just get in that slot, I'm going to fall asleep for a few minutes. And I'd become the kind of person I would, basically be worried about if I ever saw them in parking lots. And I had fallen asleep at one point, and the phone rings, and I answer, and it's Gailey. She says, Con, where are you? And I looked, and I said, when did it start snowing? And she said, where are you? She says, are you sleeping? And I said, yeah. She goes, where are you? I said, in the parking lot. She said, outside? I said, do you know an indoor parking lot?